Hello friends and welcome back. So hope you have gone through the previous session where we have discussed about the Terraform architecture properly. Okay. So in this session we are going to discuss about the Terraform workflow, okay, which is the another building block of your Terraform. Okay. So this is the extension of your Terraform architecture. We will discuss about the executions of the Terraform, how we execute the different code or script that we create in the Terraform, what is the exact workflow of that, what is the purpose of each and every step that we follow in the workflow. Okay, so we can divide the Terraform in two ways. Like, okay, the first thing is about the executions. Okay, and second is about configuration files. Right. So we have to understand two things. The very first thing, how we create the configuration files, and second is the execution. So whenever we are executing the Terraform workflow, what happened in each and every state or stage of the executions in the Terraform workflow. Okay, so we'll cover the configuration file in detail step by step. Okay, but as of now we are going to cover the Terraform workflow, that means Terraform execution. So whenever we are executing the Terraform files, so there are different phases of that, and what exactly happened in each and every phase. So we are going to discuss in detail, okay, because that is part of the Terraform architecture. And I would again recommend, do not skip a second or a fraction of a second of this particular session, because this is a building block for the Terraform. So Terraform workflow we have discussed in bit detail about in the previous architecture session, that whenever we execute the Terraform command, okay, so there is a specific workflow for that one during the execution. Okay, so Terraform follows a defined and structured workflow to manage infrastructure efficiently. That means whenever we are going to execute the Terraform command, there is a particular workflow is followed. Workflow means there are some sequential step that is followed one by one, right? That is, the step one is executed, and then you will execute the step number second, and once the second is executed, then you are going for the third. So that means a systematically approach is there for the execution of the steps. Okay, now the three important workflows phases in the Terraform are plan, apply, and then manage. Okay, the meaning is very straightforward. Plan is a stage where we do the complete end-to-end planning of the resources that we are going to configure in the cloud. Okay, and once we are sure that our plan is accurate, then we apply it. And once we apply, the resources will get configured in your cloud. Okay, and then once the resources are created, then we do a regular management of the resources. Any of the resource need to delete, any of the resource need to modify, recreate. So that means we are doing the end-to-end management. So this workflow ensure that infrastructure is planned before execution, right? So what we are doing before jumping into the execution of creation of the resources, we are doing a proper planning of the resources. What all the resources that we are going to create, once we have defined all the configurations, then we can execute the plan to understand if our plan is accurate or not according to the requirement that we want our resources. That means Terraform show what changes will happen before actually creating resources. That means before applying the changes in the cloud, the configurations that you have defined in the different configuration files, before actually executing the creation, you can execute the plan file, which will show you what will happen once you are going to execute the particular plan. Okay, so that means the plan is applied in a controlled manner. Changes are executed only after review and confirmation. So what you are confirm that our plan is proper, then you can execute your configurations for creation of the resources. So manage consistently infrastructure is always aligned with the configuration code. Okay, now how Terraform works, or the core Terraform workflow command. So whenever you are working in the Terraform, you will always be executing these commands, only these commands. Terraform init, which is to initialize the Terraform. Terraform validate, to validate the Terraform. Terraform plan, and when we run the Terraform plan, we can run with or without plan file. Okay, so as I said, whenever we are executing the Terraform, we can create the multiple plan files. So we can review the plan files before we actually execute the creation of resources. So we have two ways: either you can create the plan file, or you can go without the plan file as well. And then we apply the Terraform with the help of Terraform apply command. So again, we can use plan files. That means we can apply the Terraform with or without plan file. And if you want to destroy the resources that has been created with the help of Terraform, so for that we can use the Terraform destroy. So these are the Terraform command used in day-to-day operations, and that's why I said it is very important to understand what all these commands are doing when we are executing these commands. So when I'm executing init, so what exactly this command is doing? When I'm executing Terraform validate, what exactly this command is doing? Similarly, it is very important to understand each and every command in detail, okay, to be have a good efficient Terraform administrator. And I'm going to explain each and every command in detail, what is the purpose of each command and what exactly happened when we execute all these commands. So now, as I said, we have two options, right? Here we can create the, we can execute the Terraform plan and Terraform apply with or without plan file. Okay, so we'll understand it. What is the difference between them in detail as well? Okay, so we have a two workflows, standard workflow and then enhanced workflow. So what I'm saying with the enhanced workflow, when I'm creating the Terraform, when I'm executing the Terraform plan and Terraform apply with the help of some plan files, so I am referring it as an enhanced workflow. But when I am running without the plan files, I am saying is a standard workflow. So what is a standard workflow? So first we run the Terraform init command. So before running all this command, what we need to do? We need to create our project. And what will inside this project, we will have our code files. And what we have code files, multiple files with the extension .tf or with tf-vars. And these configuration files contain all the resources that we would like to configure, like VPC, subnet, virtual machine, load balancer, storage. All these configuration will be our in this variable files or in this configuration files, which is part of our project. And once the project is ready, then we go for the execution. So this is the phase which start when our project and complete code files are ready. Okay, so very first thing, we will run a Terraform init command. So one init, or which is called the initialization, is completed, then we can run the validate command, then we can run the plan command, and then we apply the, and then if you want to destroy anytime, you can run the destroy command. So these are the some standard commands, sorry, that we always be following, or you can say the same sequence we always be following whenever we are going to configure, modify any of the resources in the cloud. Terraform initialize. Once the initialization is completed, you can validate it, then you can plan, then you can apply. Anytime you want to delete, you can run the destroy. Similarly, in the enhanced workflow, you have the same workflow. You have to initialize, you have to validate. Then when we run the Terraform plan, then we specify a plan file name here. Okay, and because we have specified the plan file name here, okay, then while applying, you can specify the same plan file name here, which we have created with the Terraform plan here. And there is a specific benefit of that. So here we are not creating any plan file, but here when we are executing the plan and apply, we are creating the plan file. So there is some benefit of this plan file. We will understand in detail in the plan and apply section. And again, we have to destroy. If you want to destroy, then you can run the Terraform destroy. Okay. So these are the standard workflow we always follow during the executions of the Terraform. So what I will do now, one by one, I will execute and show you each and every phase what exactly we do here. Okay. Now, important thing what you have to understand here, while I am showing you all these with the executions, okay, you don't need to worry about the configuration files, because I will take one sample configuration files to explain you the concept of each and every workflow component here. Okay, so you need to focus only on what exactly happening when we are executing these commands in the background. You really not need to focus on the configuration file, because these configuration files we will learn in detail in the next session, step by step. The purpose of each and every configuration files, how we define the resources, how we then execute, everything we are going to cover in detail. So that's why I said we have two parts of the Terraform. One is the execution, and second is the configuration files. So we are going to cover configuration files later. So what we are learning as of now, execution. So when we execute the Terraform, okay, then what happened in each and every phase, right? So now let us first start with the Terraform initialization. What happened when we initialize the Terraform? Okay, so Terraform init. So before Terraform can do anything, it need to download the tools, or mean the providers, and prepare the environment. So now what does it mean? What we have learned so far, we can install and configure Terraform in any machines, in your local Windows machine or in your some of the separate virtual machines, anywhere you can configure the Terraform. And here we configure the multiple configuration files, and we can run the Terraform CLI from here for the execution, right? And this is going to contact a particular cloud service provider, like we are going with the AWS. So this will connect with the cloud service provider with the help of connectors or the plugins, and then it will create the resources here, right? So now, what is the very first thing we have learned? We need a plugin for the cloud service provider, right? So this is the initial phase, Terraform init, okay, which download the specific cloud provider plugin for you, right? So you need to define in a configuration file which cloud service provider you are going to configure. Based on that configuration, it will automatically download a plugin file for you, okay, and then it will execute the commands, right? So the purpose of Terraform init is initialize the Terraform project. So it will download the plugin file, and along with that it is initialize the environment. So once you are creating the project for execution of the Terraform code, so apart from provider, it needs some internal files as well, or you can say internal code as well, okay? So it will prepare the environment for you, and along with that it will download the corresponding providers, right? So this command download the required providers, initialize backend configuration, prepare the working directory. Okay, so whatever the working directory or the project directory that you have created, the very first thing is you have to run the Terraform init command. So this run this command before using Terraform in a new project. That means when you are going to create a new project, okay, for like for configuration of the resources, so the very first thing you need to run the Terraform init command, which will download the corresponding tools, or you can say the connectors. Along with that, it will going to initialize the environment, okay? So I will explain you with a small code, and then I will show you with the executions. But again, I'm telling you, do not worry about the code part or the configuration part, because that we are going to cover in detail in the subsequent sessions. Right now I am just explaining you about the workflow of the command that we execute, right? So now let us take here simple example. So this is a small example of the code, okay, so which we have defined in a file main.tf. Okay, so basically we define a main.tf file which contain our multiple configurations. So what we have defined here in this file, we have defined the which cloud service provider we are going to use, right? So we are going to use the AWS. So what we have given, HashiCorp slash AWS. Okay, so what is the meaning of HashiCorp? So we have a next session on this one where I will give you some overview of HashiCorp. Okay, so basically this HashiCorp was an American-based company, okay, which developed this Terraform tool, and now it is owned by the IBM, as far as I know. Okay, so that's why we specify the HashiCorp. So it connect with the HashiCorp website and it download the corresponding driver or plugins. Okay, so we are giving HashiCorp slash AWS because we are going with the AWS cloud service provider, and this is the syntax of defining the particular configuration. So as I said, I will explain you this syntax in detail in the next subsequent sessions. Right. So here we are defining the Terraform and the required providers. So with the help of required providers, what we are doing, we are defining the source as the AWS because we are going to work with the CSP provider as host, as the AWS. Okay, then we can specify the version. Okay, and here is some extra configuration where we are defining the region, to which region we want to connect. So don't focus on this one as of now, just look for this particular content. Okay, so this is for the AWS. Now suppose that you are going to connect with the Azure cloud. So in that case, what will happen? The name of your connector will get changed. Everything will be same. Okay, so there would be a separate version for the Azure. You can check in the documentations. So in the source where we have defined the AWS for the AWS cloud. So here what we have done, Azure RM. Okay, so this Azure RM defined in the main.tf command. So by this way, your Terraform will understand that, okay, you need to configure the resources in the Azure cloud. So I need to download the Azure connector, right? So this is a small configuration file that we define initially for initializing your project, which contain your cloud service provider details. Now after that, you can run the initialize command. So once you will initialize the run the initialize command, so what will happen? So this is something, the output that you will see on the screen. Okay, initializing the backend, sorry, initializing the backend, then initializing provider plugins, then finding HashiCorp slash AWS version in matching 5.0, installing HashiCorp AWS, installing HashiCorp AWS 5.0, and then Terraform has been successfully initialized. So before that, you will see these output. Okay, so what exactly is happening here? It is downloading the required providers, AWS in our case, then it is installing it. Okay, and then it is installing the all the required connectors or the plugins that has been downloaded, and then it will initialize the backend configuration. So this will set up a background for your Terraform. Okay, now to connect with the AWS and work with your configurations. If you will not going to run the Terraform initialize, okay, your Terraform will not aware about to which cloud service provider I need to connect and how to connect, because the driver will not be there, or driver, or you can say plugin or connector will not be there. So this is the first phase of your Terraform. Okay, so initializing the backend means Terraform prepare where state file will be stored. So as we discussed in the previous session, there is a great importance of the state file in the Terraform, because state file contain all the resources that you are going to configure, or whatever the resources you have configured in the cloud. So all these informations are maintained in the state files. Okay, so initially when you initialize, so Terraform prepare where the state file will be going to be stored. So this state file can be stored in the local or remote as well. So by default, it is going to store in your local system, but you have an option. You can store Terraform files in the remote locations as well. And there is a separate benefit of storing it on remote that we will discuss later at time. Okay, in the later sessions. Okay, and then it prepares the working directory, where after initialization, it will create two folders. Okay, in your local project folder, but was with the name of .terraform, and then .terraform.log.hcl. So these two will be created when you will initialize the project, and main.tf is your code file which contain your provider information. So this file you have to create manually. Okay, and then you need to initialize the project with the help of Terraform init. So this contain your provider plugins and internal Terraform files, this particular folder, right? So this is the very first step, Terraform initialize, and hope you have clear on what is the purpose of Terraform init. And now I will show you with the small execution as well. Okay, so that you will get a real feel what actually happened when we execute it, right? So now what I will do, I will quickly take this code, small code, and I will go here. So here you can say I am inside a folder Terraform project. So here I will create a main.tf file. So I will remove the extension .txt. So I will copy paste the content here. Right, so here we are defined the AWS, because we are going to connect with the AWS, right? So here I will remove this .txt extension, and this will be main.tf, right? So this is one of the configuration file that we have created in our project, okay, which will help us to initialize the project. Now here what I will do, I will go to my command prompt. So I am inside my project folder. So we always create a project folder whenever we work with the Terraform, and all the configuration files we create inside our project folder, right? So now here what I need to do, I need to run Terraform init, which is going to initialize your Terraform. So you can see here Terraform initializing the backend, initializing the provider plugins, and in parallel, if you see here, the folders will automatically get created here. You can see here that .terraform folder has been created. Okay, it is installing the HashiCorp AWS version 5. Okay, now you can see the Terraform has been successfully initialized, and now you can see the two files are created here. One is the folder, one is the file. This is the log.htl file, and then the Terraform hidden folder, .terraform, right? So in Linux, it is a hidden folder with the dot name. So if I go inside this Terraform, you will see the providers registry, from where this particular provider that has been downloaded, which is the registry.terraform.io, and HashiCorp, and then AWS, because we have given the AWS provider, right? And here you can see the version, and then this is for the Windows, and this is the license information, and this is the particular provider connector plugin file. And now hope you are very clarity on this, what is the Terraform init, why it is required. If you are not going to initialize the project, okay, it will not download the particular provider plugin, and it will not able to connect with the cloud service providers. So this is the very first command, Terraform init. Now let us understand the Terraform validate.